All right, so let me get rid of this so I can actually read. Name Towns Russell, born in Baltimore, Maryland. People always ask because I'm in the dad space, did you grow up in a decent home or a crappy home? And the answer is a little bit of both. Parents were divorced, so that's all I knew growing up. But overall, had a pretty good childhood. Wasn't completely broken home, wasn't perfect. Did most of my growing up in St. Augustine, Florida, the nation's oldest city. I've been living there really since about middle school, with the exception of when I went to college, rest of WVU. Married my girl in 06. We've had 3 boys. Every time we had a kid, we had a business. Sold them all last year, and now we're living the good life. And we're retired, traveling, and kind of promoting this and be a good dad thing. So that, to answer your question, is who I am. And then, I like to look at pictures of myself. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a handsome dude. 100% dad, platform for dads. Constant encouragement, constant wisdom, place where good dads can go and see stuff they agree with, place for struggling dads to improve. And even for kids without dads, you'll be able to find little good nuggets of information to help. We're online based. Our biggest platform right now is Instagram. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, the Chinese one, TikTok, on the website, blog, podcast. We've got to get better at podcasts with dads. I really like that part. Traveling on the road with no dedicated internet has proven to be a real struggle with sound quality and things like that. We got some blogs about the tour and about dad life. But for the most part, we're putting out bite-sized content via memes. And that's where most of our interactions are going. And of course, we're touring across the country to build up and promote the brand and the message. You mind if I just roll into it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So if I have a substantial conversation with a dad, there's some top things I ask for, and we'll dig deeper into these. It's how's your marriage? How are your finances? Do you have life insurance? Do you have a will? And what do you want your kids' life to look like when they're grown? So those are kind of my top 5, if you will. So marriage. Put your marriage first is always going to benefit the kids. When you're struggling in your marriage, when you're having a tough time, it's hard to focus on anything else. It's almost the same thing with the work. When you have a bad day at work, it's hard to let go of that when you come to the door. When you're struggling with your marriage, there's going to be awkwardness, tension, and kids pick up on that. So, making sure your marriage is right is really going to help the family as a whole. Taking courses, reading books, working on it is always recommended. In fact, just last weekend, Ryan and I did one. I got it over here. Stronger Marriage Workshop with Trey and Leah. I think it's treyandleah.com. It was a great little workshop one day at a church. It just kind of helps recalibrate everything for you. And I think that's something that, couples should go through. Know what your roles are. Mom and dad have different roles. If both of you are the same, one of you would be unnecessary. So, know what slots you guys fit. Make the time for dates, time alone, counseling. These are things needed in a marriage. Remember your vows. So when I say vows, 4 things come to mind. For rich or for poor, and in sickness and in health. And so those are the big 4. When you're rich, you're a rich guy, you can afford to wine and dine a new 24-year-old hot girl. Irrelevant. You have vows. You stick with your marriage even when it's tough. You don't break up the marriage just because mom's upset and dad's not making enough money and there's better options out there. You commit to the marriage. In sickness, and for the most part, I think about mental health situations. A lot of people breaking up because the person's not the same person they were before. My wife's meaner. My wife's angrier than she used to be. She's a shell of the woman she used to be. She's depressed. She's bipolar, man, whatever it is. We pledge in sickness and in health. Every dad I've ever talked to wants to be a king, because king life is a good life. And it feels good when we get honored and respected that way. I think it's important that kings remember that they have a queen, not a servant. The queen's also highly respected. She sits on a throne right next to him. Queens get the love and adoration from the king. She isn't there just to be a slave. I think it's important that life revolves around the family, not just an individual kid or just the kids. That's how, if you'll notice in marriages, there's big trends in year 7 and about year 25. And the reason behind that is usually around year 25. That's when the empty nesters, or you become empty nesters. And, if your marriage hasn't been the focus, if your priority's been all around the kids, you forget why you're married. You forget why you fell in love. And so that requires a good bit of work. But keeping that marriage front and center the entire way will pay off huge dividends. And of course, model what a good husband is. We hear this one a lot. Be the husband, be the dad you want your sons to become, and set that standard for your daughters of who they're going to marry. I don't think this gets talked about enough. Divorce is a crap fest. You're talking from a kid who went through them. When I was born, I think my dad left at around 3 weeks or 3 months. So I really didn't know a life outside of divorce. So I kind of grew up in custody battles and, weekends here, split holidays, things like that. And then I got to see it again when I was older, when my dad divorced a stepmom. And man, that stuff's ugly. I mean, divorce is shit. I mean, the person you love becomes the enemy. Your goal almost becomes to make their life miserable. The courts are horrendous. Custody battles are horrendous. I mean, it gets ugly. It gets nasty. And I think a lot of people are seeing divorce as the easier path, the path that's going to make them happier. And they kind of forget that, man, divorce isn't going to lead to like true happiness and things like that. Now there are some good stories. But for the most part, you still got to deal with this person for the rest of your life. I mean, we're dads. That means there's kids involved. So for the rest of your life, every birthday, every holiday is going to be split. It's going to be shared. Every birth announcement, funerals, weddings, you're still going to have to interact with this person. You still have to make plans with them. So something you could spend 2 days on, but that divorce really sucks. It gets ugly, it gets nasty, and there's not a lot of happy stories that come out of divorce. There are a few, but not a ton of them. Are we still good? I just got an internet connection stability warning.
Yeah, you're still good. Thank you for all that. Just to touch base on that, yeah, divorce. I mean, I've seen it so many times, even in the line of trade and that I'm in, and just the tradesmen in general, and just being entrepreneurs and stuff like that. I mean, it's running rampant. I mean, they think the grass is greener on the other side, and for whatever reason, and man, what they don't realize is the effects that it has negatively on the children. So I like 100%. That you touched on that.
What time do we start? I got alarms that are going to be delayed. But let's do all this stuff we could really jump deep into. I mean, almost every single line. And here, I'll skip forward just so you guys see. There's a good bit of it. We won't get super deep in anything. We're going to kind of gloss it over. So don't panic that it's going to be a 5-hour thing.
One of the things I wanted to ask you,
yep,
Townsend, is what do you suggest to the father who's trying to gain influence with his children? Like, I guess, what would be the importance of the role as a father, just besides finances and being a provider for them and stuff like that? What would you suggest? What do you think the importance of a father is as a role?
My default answer is providing, protecting, and being a role model.
Mm-hmm.
Here, let me jump ahead. So my normal answers are, dad's job is to provide the basics of life: food, shelter, utilities. Provide financially. It's obviously the one guys go to, make sure your present's taken care of, then your future. Providing unconditional love doesn't get talked a lot about in the dad space. And I think that's important that they know dad loves them when they screw up. Dad loves them when they succeed. Dad loves them unconditionally. That doesn't mean that there isn't discipline and consequences in life. That doesn't mean you're going to never disappoint us. We still love you regardless. Discipline and consequences are something I'm big on. I lived more of that military strict life, pretty rigid. Less so now that we're in an RV, just because our life is chaotic. But we've always had a lot of structure and rules. But there needs to be discipline in life, and there needs to be consequences for actions. And I'm a firm believer of that. Dads need to provide safety. We need to be living in places that get shot up. We don't need to be living down the street from a drug den. Move your asses out of there. If there's, you ever take a look at one of those pedophile maps where you got all the red dots everywhere where the perverts and predators are? Get the hell away from there. Do whatever it takes, but make sure your family's safe. And that could be in family things too. Most of that, most molestations and perverted type activities are in family, and they're not just some strangers. So, things to think about. Kids thrive with structure. Kids thrive with rules. Kids thrive when you give them support and encouragement. That doesn't mean they're always going to go along with it. They will certainly push back and give resistance, but they do really well under those circumstances. So providing structure, rules, providing support, providing encouragement, providing wisdom. I think that should be a great source of wisdom.
Yes.
Providing stability in life, providing perspective on the world. I think is something we're lacking tremendously, is perspective. And the easy things to do are, take us back 100 years. What was life like 100 years ago? What is life like today in a third world country? There's a lot of perspective that is not happening. And that's why we have a country that really thinks America is a shithole, and they just don't know what a shithole is. They don't know how tough life is for other people and how good we have it. And there's things fathers can share about. And fathers should be teaching life lessons. And a lot of that comes down to being able to spend time. Time with them, which we put out a fun little meme today that's gotten a good reception on Instagram. So, the providing, protecting, being a role model, protecting. So obviously physical harm, spiritual harm, emotional harm, protect them from evil. Obviously injuries and abuse and neglect, protect them from doing stupid things. We want to give them some of that wisdom, protect them from bad influences. One of my more memorable moments is I moved out of my house at 16, moved in with a friend. And I think this was after that, but my dad didn't like who I was running around with. And I think he cornered me at one point, just said, look at these guys' lives, look at their family and where they are. They're in the drug trades, they're in this, they're in that, they're always getting arrested. I don't want that for you. And I blew him off because I was a jackass teenager. Like, well, whatever. But I mean, that still stuck with me. And, while I hung out with him, I didn't necessarily do things with him that I felt crossed the line. But, it was a great example of being a good dad. Protecting them from, doing stupid stuff, illegal activity, protecting them from laziness. Lazy kids irritate me. Lazy adults irritate me. So if we can build in some work ethic, that'd be fantastic. Getting feedback.
What is that?
Somebody's unmuted. Protect them from predators. Protection. I mean, it's what dads do. We got the image of the lion here, and I love the image of a lion. Just lions are like that fierce, awesome animal. And they also lay around like 22 hours a day while the women go work. So.
Yeah, I love what you said about just being more than just a provider and protector for them. Our roles are just incredible, from being a perfect role model to everything else, is modeling how a man should be for his wife, and it ties directly with how we treat our spouse. When we're treating our spouse a certain way as a father, our sons, our daughters are watching this and they're getting different messages. For the sons, the message they're receiving from the way we treat our spouse is how to treat their spouse and how to treat other girls in their life. And the message that it's also depicting for our daughters is what to look for in a man, what to look for in a father and a husband for her children, you know? So it's so important. You know, I can't stress it more than enough about they watch you. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you can point fingers at them and tell them everything like you were saying. But what matters is what you're putting out. They're going to watch you. And I think that's awesome that you hit on that. And you know what I mean? I didn't want to jump in, but I just got real excited, brother. So, man,
well,
let's go
that ties
on.
great into that third aspect of, you know, be the role model, you know, be that great husband, be a great man, be a great dad. You know, I like the word great. It just implies that you're attempting to achieve top-notchness, if that's a real word. Being great in the community, being authentic in your pursuit of being great. So a lot of the fake it till you make it. You know, I think, you know, you put out your flaws, you know your flaws. You know, you and I have been on a podcast before where you were really good at self-assessment in the moment, where a lot of people, that's not a talent of theirs to be able to self-assess in the moment. But be authentic in what you are good at and where you really are, and you know, tell your kids the truth. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to do this. You know, none of us will ever become the greatest at anything. I mean, this is where the odds are. But the attempt to get there and the way you live your life in trying to become is incredibly important. Part of being a role model is don't tolerate crap. I don't think that gets said enough. I hear a lot. I see a lot of dads get walked over and then they've kind of become pushovers and real soft. And I'm big on be strong and be firm in your role, you know, in that head of household role. Respect should be there. And that's one of the 10 commandments. I mean, you know, respect your parents. So if a kid's going to treat a dad like crap, you know, I'd like to see that dad standing up to his son or his daughter and saying, you won't speak to me that way. You know, you are going to treat me with respect. And same thing with mom too. You know, dad shouldn't be walked over. And I think dads need to be standing up for themselves a little bit more. And that's, you know, going back to being the role model, going to be the example of a firm, strong man. There we go. Be firm, be strong, free thinking, you know, kind of be who you are. Remember, it's a long-term game. You know, this all plays out. The success of parenting plays out in 20 years. So this isn't about how everyone feels today. If they're mad at you today, if your friends are going to like you today, if the other dads behind you think you did a good job today, all this matters is how the kid turns out in 20 years. What's he going to be like, or she going to be like as an adult? And that's why I think dads are really good at keeping that long-term vision and making sure everyone stays that course. And of course, don't be afraid of tempers, resistance, pushback, you know, stand up to disrespect again. You know, this isn't a 1950s TV show. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be daughters that want to wear clothes that are inappropriate. There's going to be sons that want to stay out to 2 a.m. and you're going to tell them no. There's going to be all sorts of stuff, and you need to be able to hold your ground and hold your line. So to answer your question, let me jump back to where I was since you got me skipping forward. All right. So this is kind of going back to the top 5 things that I talk about. Finances are anytime we do a finance post, it's like our most popular posts. The world just can't seem to figure out money. And in all honesty, money is simple. Spend less than you make. You're going to win. Money is stupid simple. It's numbers. You just do less than you have. But the biggest marriage fights, the biggest family struggles revolve around money. And the way to be 100% successful in money, no matter how much you make, whether you're poor, whether you're or low income or high income, is to never borrow. There are lots of great stories on people that borrow and invest properly, and they can multiply that wealth. And those are real stories. There's just 99% more people who tried that and failed because it gets complicated. It makes life messier. But if you never borrow, you live on less than you make, you're going to succeed. It's mathematically impossible not to. I'm big on budgets. You and mom and dad need to be budgeting together. You need to know where your dollars go. You need to know where you're spending money, how you can cut back, how you can save, and how much you're making. There's too much wandering around out there. Spend less than you make. It's just really what it comes down to. Live within your means. That drives me crazy. Everyone wants to spend more just so they look cool. The people who really don't care.
Yeah.
Invest for the future. So once you get your life going, you've got your bases covered. You're comfortable. Invest for the future. We've got retirement coming up. You got kids' college coming up. It's November 12th. Guys, Christmas is coming up. Same time every year. So hopefully you've been preparing for it. Buy smart. We can always buy smarter. That doesn't always mean the cheapest way. Make sure it's a team effort. Mom and dad on the same page. Involve your kids. Obviously your 4-year-old's not going to sit down and budget with you. You don't have to get super tight into the numbers with kids. I do. I don't mind sharing my numbers with kids. Or my kids. My oldest is a little entrepreneurial, so we really kind of go over like business budgets and things like that with him. Probably more detail than the average family. But it kind of comes down to just live life you can afford, and then life gets a lot easier. Let me mute my phone.
I agree with you 100% on all that, the finances and stuff like that. Would you say a lot of times fathers in the pursuit of trying to figure themselves out, that they tend to dive into what I call energy leaks and start pursuing into other hobbies and stuff like that, and spending their time there versus spending their time where it's appropriate, like with their children and stuff like that, like doing stuff with their kids, being more engaged? Do you think that that's an issue today?
Certainly. I think, where you put your time is what you care about. Not 100% directly, but I think dads need to make sacrifices when it comes to time, and we'll jump ahead to that in a few slides.
Okay.
Life insurance and will, two must-haves. It gives you security and peace of mind. It's something that is the unsung hero unless a rare event happens. I plan on never dying. I'll live to 130. But all it takes is driving down the road and some guy has a seizure, and there's just nothing you can do. There's no maneuver you can do. You went head to head at 80 miles an hour, and there's crap happens. So in the event we die, we want to make sure our family's taken care of. A will is going to keep probate court from interfering with your life and just causing a whole nightmare. You would think you're a husband, everything would just go to your wife and it would be easy peasy. And eventually it's going to get there, but it's months of probate court. It is an absolute nightmare if you do not have a will. And your wife is going to have to deal with that. And she's from mourning you to really hating you and despising you because you left her in such a mess. And I don't want that for any dad. When it comes to life insurance is simply income replacement. So if you make 50 grand a year, this isn't a lottery windfall. This is, we need to cover your income. We're just being practical about this. And, that's going to be at least 10 times your income. So if you're making 50 grand a year, you need to give 50 grand a year, basically forever. And so that's going to be at least $500,000, depending on how you get it invested. So you want that chunk of money to be invested. And you can talk to an investment advisor on how you can do that. And make sure that's known in place and your wife knows how to do that. So she doesn't go on a $500,000 spending spree when you die and then, be broke in a few years. I lost my place in here. Life insurance replace income, blah, blah, blah. Wills need to be talked about with your wife, especially. But as far as you should have your childcare lined up if both of you die at the same time. We need to know where kids are going to go live, who they're going to live with, if there's going to be rules there. We went kind of above and beyond on ours. We've got rules on how our trust is going to pay out. And that gets really fun. But that's for another talk. Living wills and power of attorneys are because they just help eliminate a lot of fights in the event they're needed. What do you want your kids to be like when they're an adult? The reason this is important is obviously if you have an end game in mind, that 20-year game, you can start making decisions to get to that trajectory. Good things. Most people are going to be on the left side of this. They want their kids to be happy and married and have good kids and have a stable life and strong faith. And they want them to be respected in the community, relatively well-to-do, respectful. And I don't know why there's so many bad drivers on the road, but clearly dads are not doing a good job teaching. Less than good things. Most people don't want their kids to grow up to be criminals. They don't want them to become prostitutes. They would prefer they not be in prison or divorced, not knowing their kids, untrustworthy, broke, or just overall negative. So once we kind of establish these things and you know where you want them to be as an adult, and a lot of people just aren't thinking about that long-term vision. They're just thinking about today and tomorrow and next week. It's a lot easier to make decisions in your life and parenting decisions. A lot of stats on dads. I'm assuming, I want to say, I'll read through these real quick because statistics bore the crud out of me. Yeah. By the way, these are all just memes we've had on Instagram that I tossed up here. Teenage pregnancy, nearly 4 times unlikely in a home without a dad. Teenage suicide rates increase in homes without a dad. 55% of WIC recipients are raised by single mothers. 50% of all Head Start recipients are from dadless homes. 40% of all public assistance in Section 8 housing are households with no dad. Single moms have a poverty rate of nearly 50%. That's 4 times of a married couple with kids. Nearly a quarter of kids today grow up in a home without dad. Father-child interactions during infancy prevents behavior issues in kids as they grow. So even as an infant, your mere presence is important. Young men that grew up in a home without dad are almost 300% more likely to deal drugs and carry guns than young men who grew up with a dad in a home. That does not mean they're working at CVS as a respected pharmacist and a proponent of the Second Amendment. That's more likely crime activity. Dad's absence means a much higher chance of lower education and poverty. School outcomes, including involvement, attention, and success, increase dramatically when dad is home and involved. Dad involvement is related to positive cognitive, developmental, and socio-behavioral child outcomes like improved weight gain in preterm infants, improved breastfeeding rates, higher receptive language skills, and higher academic achievement. A lot of boring stats. I bet if I asked anybody right now, no one's going to remember any of that. Here's what wasn't said in those studies. Not once was it mentioned dad's income, how tall he was, if he had a drinking habit, if he cursed, if he holds a job, if dad went to church, if dad had good moral behavior, his socioeconomic conditions. It didn't mention if he was a homeowner, how much debt he had, what his fitness level was, or how interactive of a dad he was. Why is that relevant? All that mattered in these studies was that dad was around, which means dad's mere presence is stupidly powerful. So if you've not been there, if you've not been great, if you're not perfect, which none of us are, then this is a reason just to forgive yourself and cut yourself some freaking slack. You can't tell me dads don't matter when you look at stats like that. If a bad dad is present, is what that's saying, the statistics for some of the worst things in life go down dramatically.
Wow.
And so all you have to do is show up. And if all you have to do is show up, imagine if you put in some freaking effort into being a dad. Imagine if you tried to be a better dad, if you tried to be the best dad you could be. I mean, moms get all the glory, and moms have kind of become, in the last 30 years, like the center of the family and the most important thing in the family. And you start looking at dad or the data on what happens when you take the dads out, and it's, it says it yourself. Dads are stupid important. And the fact that we've been taking them out of the picture that's dumb. I did a meme on this today. I don't know if anybody saw it. But if I had to pick the most important thing, it'd be time. Mom and dad need to be the primary influence in the kid's life. And that's hard nowadays because, right away we're sticking kids in childcare for most of the day. The TV is becoming a primary source of influence. Their friends are becoming a primary source of influence. Relatives, YouTube, and movies, all these things, they don't need to form your kids' values and morals and ethics. You need to form them. So mom and dad need to spend as much time as possible to be the primary influence on your kids. You could have a whole day breaking this down, but daughters and sons are different. A lot of things they need the same, but daughters really need you to listen to them and hear them talk and spend a large amount of time listening to them. Sons really just need to be near you. I mean, if we're all guys here, there's times we've spent next to our dads, not saying a word, repairing a car, working in a field, just sitting in a car. And like for us, that's connecting. Like it's memorable. It's impactful for us. We don't have to say a word. It means a lot. So we're just different. Like we're a girl in that same situation is wondering why her dad's not talking to her. But as long as you're listening to her, that's good. Take family trips. Family trips are going to provide that time. I really think dads need to be taking trips without mom. Now, just to clarify, family trips and trips without mom. But camping trips without mom, kayaking or canoeing down a river, like a multi-day trip, get out in a tent, go on some adventurous hikes. I think these are good things. You can do those with mom, but I think there needs to be a few times in your life where you do them without mom as well. Because dad's going to be a little less conservative, a little more risky, a little more push the boundaries and explore when mom's not there than when she is there. And that's developmentally, I think, really good for kids, and it's going to create a lot of good memories. The dining table is huge, and I don't mean that you just find the biggest dining table you can. I mean, it's huge in your life. When we're around the dining table, that's going to provide opportunities to communicate. When you're just sitting there with nothing to do but chew, you're going to start talking about your day. You can start asking questions about the day. You can start sharing stories from when you were younger. That's when all this impactful conversation and this bonding is going to happen, which is kind of the same with camping. The reason I like camping and hiking and being out in the wilderness is because there's nothing else to do. Like eventually you're all just kind of sitting around a campfire or wandering on a trail, and you can only hit so many things with a stick before you just start talking to each other, and a lot of positive things will come out of that. So the dining room table is huge to me, and so are those trips. It provides the opportunities to connect. After work, I know a lot of dads get tired. A lot of dads have, the sore knees, mentally worn out. They kind of want to go retreat to their man cave or watch some TV or just kick back a few drinks. I think, especially if you're not spending a lot of time with your kids after work, the most productive hour you can have is getting on the floor and playing with your kids. Obviously, when they're younger, you're probably not getting on the floor playing with them when they're 17. But after work, when you're exhausted, if you can make that hour, that 2 hours, and actually spend time with your family and interact and play with your kids, that's going to be your most productive hour of the day. Same thing with weekends. Don't make weekends about your golf retreats. Don't make weekends about your friends. Dads have to sacrifice certain things in our lives, and sometimes we have to sacrifice our hobbies and our friends as our family's more important. And that might be the same for your career. We don't want to be detrimental to our career, but you don't want to spend 18 years of their life, get to the end and realize you have no relationship with your kid, but man, you made a lot of money, because that's not going to matter. And so it's a really hard thing to say, especially for someone like me who's very business oriented. I never had to do that corporate career where I had to listen to somebody else, but I know if I had it truly my way and like just didn't care about the dad aspect, shoot, I'd probably build a loft in the warehouse and spend the nights at the office, because I genuinely like work. But luckily, I did have the dad aspect in life, so my kids would come to the office to me. We would have dinners there. I would come home for lunch. I could usually have breakfast with them, so we did have a lot of interaction that way. So I could kind of mix my need to work so hard with my family. And time is even one that exists, and this is going to be those adolescent years where the girls say, I don't want to spend time with my dad. I don't want to go on a camping trip. Force the issue. You're not going to regret having a bad camping trip, and they won't either down the road when they're older. So when it comes down to it, when they're 30 years old, they'll be thanking you that you force them to go on those camping trips, that you force them to spend with them. Don't let them go just because they're resisting. You know, your dad, you can force the issue. How are we doing on time? I know all my alarms went off, but we started late.
You got a minute left, brother.
All right, what do we got here? All right. I think it's big to write down your morals, values. You know, the reason I think it's smart to write them down is so you can present them to mom and you and mom are on the same page. And they can be, I think it'd be great if we could find a way to put them on a banner or something. I should do this in my house. And that way the entire family is held accountable. When we get to that line, we can't cross it because it's written down, it's firm, it's in stone. Kids can hold you accountable, mom will hold you accountable, and you can hold them accountable. But we need to be talking about things, you know, about your faith, your financial values, dating, sex, drugs, you know, politeness, how we treat other people. You can read the list. That is made clear so everyone knows where dad and mom stand. You know, the baby boomer generation, I think, like my grandparents' generation, that's a generation that never talked about, was it sex, politics, and religion? You just don't talk about those things. And you can make a super strong argument right now that those are 3 areas in our country where we're struggling the most because we spent generations not talking about it. And now there's a whole bunch of confusion around it. So talk about these things, write them down, draw a line in the sand. I think it's some of the best things you can do. Passing on lessons comes along with time. So share your stories with your kids. Explain your why is really big to me. If you have rules, explain why you have those rules. If you feel a certain way, explain why you feel that way. You know, we live in a sitcom world where, you know, everyone says something, they don't explain the why, and then people are misinterpreting or filling in the why for you, and they're often wrong. You need to repeat your values over and over. That's where writing them down is going to help. Share your culture. Culture is a big thing. I don't think we have time to get into it, but I'm a white guy that's mixed of everything. So I have no culture, but I really appreciate Indian cultures and Hispanic cultures and Black culture. I mean, I grew up in the generation that it's part of the reasons I don't understand racism right now. Like, I wanted to be Black growing up. Like, Black fashion was cool to me. Black music was cool to me. You know, the way they interacted with their families was cool to me. Their jokes were cool to me. So I get confused about that. I was an East Coast white kid. But I don't think culture should be whitewashed. I think it should be kept, and it's your job to kind of pass that on. Give perspective in the world. We talked about that a little bit, making sure we're creating one-on-one time. That's important. So create time as a family and one-on-one with each kid. I think that's important. And your marriage, obviously. It's a lot of things to do, but this dad life isn't super simple. There's a lot of moving factors to it.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. Yeah, I agree.
Have some all-day things, those overnight trips. You know, there's just moments in your life where I think most of us can look back, and there's a few things that stand out in our life, and maybe it was sneaking out, you know, past bedtime to hang out with your dad to do something, or just those special times where, you know, I remember one time I got pulled out. I was about to go. It was probably 11 midnight. My dad grabbed me, and we just did a candy store run. Like, we literally went to the CVS or something, grabbed like $20 worth of candy and gorged on it. I have no idea why we did that. Just something that sticks out with me. You know, with my granddad, it was waking up at 5 a.m. to go down to a gas station when I'll spend time with him on the farm. We'd just go down to the gas station and sit around the old guys. But, you know, I'd be the only one willing to wake up at 5 a.m. with them and do it. And those things stick out. So try and create those special, unique moments that.
Yeah, and I really like the way you touched on that. And one of the biggest things that I saw that was so important, Russell Townsend, is that the table thing. I mean, we did that when I was growing up as well. You know, just sitting around the table and just talking and connecting and using that to connect with your family and seeing what's going on in the lives of their children. One of the things I wanted to ask you for our audience, Townsend, is what is the number one thing you can do to have influence in the home as a father? What do you think?
Put the time in, put the effort in.
Time and the effort?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Awesome. And how can they follow you? Just 100% dad? Is that where they can get information, or?
Yep. Is the screen still sharing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you see over to the right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Those are the platforms on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. The handle is at 100dad. YouTube is 100% dad. Twitter stuff gets pushed to Twitter. I'm not even sure I've ever logged on that, but that's at the 100dad and then 100dad.com. We try and make it easy.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for your time, Townsend. You're awesome. I think what you're doing is just great. And I thank you for, you're extremely busy. And I thank you for just being able to come on here and just share everything you did. I mean, there's tremendous amount of value that you gave to this, and your effort is just outstanding. And I thank you, brother. And
Absolutely.
have a blessed day, man. And we'll see you hopefully coming up,
As well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.